Hi, this is Kylie Thompson, host of Food for Thought. Thanks for listening to the following podcast on Public House Media.
Disarming disability.
Hey, welcome back. This is Disarming Disability, and I am Sarah Tuberty,
and I'm Nicole Kelly.
And hey, how's it going? What's something fun you've been doing this week?
Phew. I'm in Chicago, of course. This is Nicole, and Chicago is still in pretty strict lockdown in the sense that so many people are still totally working from home. I've actually physically returned to work, but there's a ton of protocol that's in place where everybody's 6 feet apart and we're all wearing masks and we all have hand sanitizer at our desk and, kind of all these extra steps and measures for us to physically go back in. But the exciting thing that I'm really thinking about this week are tacos.
Yes.
Because the part of Chicago that I live 2 blocks away from the best taco place in the entire city of Chicago. And they opened up outdoor seating in Chicago again, which is so exciting because it kind of actually brings a little taste of summer Chicago back, which we've been missing. And this place does a taco truck outside of its just normal restaurant location. So twice already this week, I have gone to get my taco truck tacos because they are so fantastic. And I am very thankful for the taco truck this week. That's where I'm at. How are you doing?
You know what? I'm good. I have 2 funny stories about tacos. One of them is I was at where was I? I was in Spain, I think. I'd gone to Barcelona. I had gone to Barcelona. It was the first time I traveled entirely by myself to somewhere, and that's something I was excited to do. But it had been a city I'd already had gone to before, so I felt very comfortable in Barcelona. I'd been there several times prior to this time me going by myself, and I ended up making some really good girlfriends at the hostel that I was staying at. So then they invited us to go out to this really beautiful club that was on the water in Barcelona. So you entered it on the top floor and then you went down to the bottom floor and it just went out to the water, and it was so beautiful because it was right along the beach. So I'm at this, but I didn't intend on going to a nightclub, so I didn't bring any nightclub attire. So then we all went out and I found this cute little dress, and it made my butt look good. And so when I'm at this nightclub, this guy said something, because people say stuff, but this guy had said something along the lines of oh, you have a nice butt. And I turned around and looked over my shoulder and I goes, "It's all just tacos and cookies." And then I just strut away. And then later I was like, "Oh my God, did I just say that?"
What did I just do? Did I just say that? Actually, I'm really proud because of the 2 things that are going to make up any type of badonk, it should be tacos and cookies. So I feel like that's either just straight truth or what should be truth anyway.
It was. That is, because honestly, I love tacos and I love cookies. So I wasn't lying. I just was proud of myself for how that came out, and that I just sort of really I did my little shoulder walk saunter off thing as I found my girlfriends again, which is so funny. And then my other favorite taco story is my sister had shared this meme with me a few years ago, and it says things Californians are good at. Number 1, loving
California.
Oh, and I'm from California. Yeah, I grew up in California. So it says things Californians are good at. 1, loving California. 2, talking about California. 3, hating the cold. 4, taco consumption. 5, judging other states' Mexican food. And 6, diving under a desk. Which I read this and I just laughed hysterically because I was like, it's accurate. I moved to Philadelphia and I'm just it's so cold here. I hate it. California's so much better. And
tacos.
I just want tacos, and I can't believe the state's Mexican food. My little hole-in-the-wall taco place in Vacaville, California is so much better than this. And And it's funny because right now I know I'm behind on all of it. I totally get it. But for whatever reason, I'm watching Sex and the City. I didn't watch it as a kid because it came out when I was like, 9. But now as a 30-year-old, I was like, wow, this TV show is amazing. It's talking about everything. And Carrie, the main character in Sex and the City, goes over, and it comes up in a bunch of her different episodes where she says, like, I just don't understand how people live outside of New York. Like, why is New York not the center of everybody's lives? And I just feel that way about California too. Like, why would anyone else want to be anywhere else but California? Like, California is so amazing because we have breakfast burritos and great tacos and Disneyland, like in Hollywood. Like, who wouldn't want to be here? So it just is so funny that I kind of grew up with that allure of like how wonderful California was. And even like anytime I travel, people ask you where you're from, and technically I'm from the United States, right? But no one really says the United States. Everyone just says their individual state, right? For the most part. When I just find it's interesting, if you talk to people from other countries, they'll say that they're from their country that they're from. But I'm like, oh, I'm from California. And people are like, oh, fun, California. So I loved that as like a 16-year-old being an exchange student, and all Italy was so in love with the fact that I was from California. So it feels very like bougie and poshy. And I totally get that we have such inflated egos and pride on where we're from, as I suppose everybody does, right? Like, I think a lot of people sort of like have this diehard space in their hearts and pride from where they're from, right? And think that that's kind of like the coolest thing.
I remember traveling when I was little, and us kind of meeting other people who were also on vacation, who we were, making acquaintances with and, going on hikes with, or whatever it may be, kind of like when you meet people on vacation. And I'll always remember, I don't know how young I was, but because I'm from a tiny, tiny town in Iowa, when you're little, regardless of how big your town is, like, that is your bubble, right? Like, nothing exists outside that bubble. So I'll always remember that we were in this conversation, or my parents were rather, with this new couple that, we had met and were talking to and getting to know. And they asked where we were from. And my parents immediately responded, oh, we're from around Chicago. Chicago is actually technically 5 hours from my hometown. We maybe would come into Chicago once every other year. Now I live here, of course, but Chicago wasn't right next door. We weren't a suburb of Chicago. We were nowhere near, I was from the middle of cornfields. I'm a child of the corn. And and so I remember being so
shocked. In a whole different state.
Yeah, it's a totally
it's a really different state.
But then afterwards, I didn't in the moment ask my parents, but afterwards right away I was like, we are not from Chicago. We are from Iowa. We are from corn. This is our life. What are you saying? And my parent, and the way they explained it to me was almost kind of the way that we were talking to just earlier, where like regionally, everybody knows where California is. Nobody, if you're not from Iowa, if you're from another country, you're not going to know where Iowa is when you say Iowa, but you may know where Chicago is when you say Chicago. So my parents were having to explain to me that we were like a lot less important than other states, basically. In real time, I was learning how we were lower on the list.
Speaking about California, what is a really cool, because we're clearly the best, right? I know, because we have to talk about how cool California is. But speaking about California, there's a really cool, what in California? What?
We are so excited because, yes, in the beautiful Silicon Valley, that, yes, does exist in your home state of California. I almost said Colorado. We're so excited because that is a home space for Apple. Yes, the big A, Apple. And that's where a campus of over 12,000 people are employed by this company. And that is the heart and brain of where technology is coming out of. And we're so excited because today we have the actual director in charge of accessibility at Apple. She is the lady. Her name is also Sarah. And so we have Apple Sarah today, and we have Disarming Disability Sarah today. But yeah, we were able to hop on a call with Apple Sarah, and she was just so down to earth, so cool. kind of contextually for you to know, Apple is just coming out of a big conference where it's their developers conference, and they're sharing what new features are coming out and what they've really been focusing on for the past year. It happens every summer. And so coming off of that, they've just made a handful of big accessibility and adaptability features. And Sarah was nice enough to hop on a call with us and chat with us and share with us what we can look forward to in this year as far as features and functions. And it was so much fun. So I can't wait for you guys to hear it.
And that they wanted to share it with us, which is just so humbling too. And also Nikki described it as licking the icing off of the cupcake. Like, we didn't even deep dive into all of the different things that Apple has. I mean, we could have been on a call with Sarah for hours, I think, and still not even be able to cover all of the cool features that Apple is doing, and sort of that technology is really building accessibility into the fabric and the framework and the heart and the meat of what technology is doing, and all of the different products that do exist, which I just think is so fantastic.
So yeah, with no further ado, shall we make that transition?
Great. Yes. Okay. Sarah Herrlinger is the Director of Global Accessibility Policy and Initiatives. Sarah leads accessibility for Apple, including Apple's award-winning voiceover screen reader software for people who are blind, made for iPhone, hearing aids, and other initiatives that support Apple's culture of inclusion. At Apple, accessibility is championed as a basic human right and influences all Apple platforms. Since joining Apple in 2003, Sarah has served in several key accessibility roles, including in Apple's education organization, focusing on the use of Apple technology to support all learners, as well as defining the accessibility product strategy across the Apple ecosystem. Sarah holds a Bachelor of Arts degree from DePaul University and a Master's of Business Administration from Stanford Graduate School of Business, and serves on the board of directors of the American Foundation for the Blind. We have Sarah here. We're so excited. And so Sarah, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your role?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you so much for having me be a part of this, Sarah and Nicole. It's wonderful to be joining you guys today. So my name is Sarah Herrlinger, and I lead accessibility at Apple. In my role, I kind of sit at the 30,000 foot level, looking at accessibility across everything that Apple does, whether that be products or services or stores, workplace, all of the many things, the ways that we interact with all of our users in the world. And it's really, from our perspective, we consider accessibility to be a basic human right. So it's really looking at accessibility not as a checkbox or as a single thing to do and walk away from, but instead as something that we build into everything that we do as a company. So that means in my job externally, that's making sure that people do understand what are the things we build into our products, the ways we express ourselves out to the world, and then internally making sure that every single Apple employee understands that accessibility is one of our core corporate values, and that regardless of whether accessibility is in any of their titles or not, that it is something that they should be thinking about in everything that they do. And that goes beyond just sort of, engineers and designers, but all the way to store employees or even people who, work in our facilities department. If somebody is walking past a trash can and says, wow, I'm not sure that a wheelchair could go past that, I should move this trash can, I can go to bed that night saying, job well done. So I'm always just trying to make sure that accessibility is a part of every conversation here at the company.
Absolutely. I took a assistive technology course for my occupational therapy program, and and this course was in 2017, and sort of the overwhelming messaging was that there sort of is this accessibility is like an expansion pack, like, okay, well, maybe these accessibility features are sort of, the original design didn't have accessibility included in it. So then here's sort of these external features that you can kind of put into it, or this need for separate products that sort of were able to address all of the different needs for people. But they really but the overwhelming message was just needing to create universal design so that we have one product that is accessible, and accessibility is built into that actual product, and that it's not sort of this like separate thing that, okay, people with disabilities have to have this special thing. Like, no, that this is the universal thing that everybody else is using. And I know that things like Siri or being able to talk to different devices to be able to control different apps within homes was something that was really wonderful, so that it helped create more access for people who needed it. So I just love that the accessibility coming into the core of the design is how we're moving forward as a society. And I'm just really appreciative and thankful that those are things that you and Apple are doing and making sure that our core values. So I'm excited. Can you tell us a little bit more about some of the features that are coming out in the new Apple products?
Yeah. Although I want to touch on something you were just saying,
Sure.
because I think that is really crucially important, to take consumer products and make them work for everyone. And that's something that, from our perspective, we've been doing for years. It's for us, when we look at accessibility, it's not about a third party doing it for us or bolting it on as an afterthought at the end. It's about, at the beginning of the design process, thinking about how anyone who would want to use a product would have the opportunity to do so. So we have spent, decades building accessibility features into the operating systems as standard features. So to kind of to your point, not as a pack to be added on later or something that you have to download. It's there from the minute you buy your device. You can get to it, start it up, and make it work the way you want your device to work best for you. So we look at accessibility as being about customization and the personalization, because everyone's experience of using their device, whether they self-identify as having a disability or not, is unique. Any way that, Sarah, your phone is set up is going to be different than the way Nicole's phone is going to be set up, is different than the way my phone's going to be set up. And that's just basic life. So we want to make sure that whatever is the thing that works best for you is the stuff that we have available to you at any time. And segueing into your next question, this year is no different. We have, our team spends every year looking at not just how do we take everything that every other engineer at Apple is working on and making that accessible, because we want to make sure that if you're a member of one of the communities that we support, that all the awesomeness that everybody's working on works for you. But it's also an opportunity for us to create unique features for our communities so that we can really surprise and delight everybody who uses our technology. And there are a couple of things that we have focused on this year that I think are really interesting. One area that we put a lot of effort into this year is support for the hearing, and I put that in quotes, hearing community, in the sense of not those who are hearing, but ranging anything from someone who is deaf to someone who is hard of hearing to someone who just wants to get more out of using our devices to somebody who wants more just knowledge and awareness of their hearing health. And so there's a lot of different things that we've done to support a wide range of that spectrum of quote unquote hearing. And so to start off, one of them that we've done is a feature called headphone accommodations. And it's a feature that allows you to adjust certain frequencies to both amplify or dampen particular sounds and better tune audio for your individual needs. This can be done on AirPod Pro or on AirPods, the second generation, Beats headphones and EarPods. It's available in all of those places. And the idea is that it would allow you to be able to hear whether you're doing music, movies, phone calls, FaceTime calls, all of those things, you're able to get a better quality of sound. So works across all those things. But for AirPods Pro, there is also an additional feature involving the transparency mode that is available for AirPods Pro. And if you're a user of AirPods Pro, you know that you sort of have the option of going all the way to noise canceling or having transparency, where you can hear some of the sound that's out in the world around you. And with this new feature, it takes your customized settings and adds that to how transparency works, so that you have a better ability to be able to hear the outside sounds in a way that gives you more awareness of what's going on in your surroundings. And the way that you set this up is there's actually a feature in the accessibility settings that is It's called a custom audio setup. If you have an audiogram, you can actually incorporate that. But otherwise, you go through a series of little sound tests, and it gets you to a point where you're able to have 9 different possible settings that are kind of set up to be able to either amplify tunings, but with varying strengths.
So I'm picturing, when you say that, I'm a theater kid at heart, so I'm picturing the big soundboard that you were never allowed to touch in the theater, right? There was like the one sound guy who wore all black that was the only person allowed to teach, like one of the tech crew, who knew what all these knobs and buttons did, and essentially probably it was frequency and sound and areas that it was coming from. That's in my mind as you're describing this new feature, kind of giving that type of capability of which buttons you can lower, higher. This can be medium. This can be on very high. This one can be off. Is that
yeah, to some degree. It's
to some degree.
Yeah, exactly. It's sort of the strength and that you need a specific level of sound or those different audio preferences to be set so that you can hear it more crisply and clearly depending on the environment that you're in or the type of media that you're listening to.
Super cool.
Awesome.
I do have further questions about features that were just announced at conference, but I want to, I think, pause and ask you at this point, can you share with us a little bit about, number one, how does Apple prioritize kind of what the next is or what you really want to focus on? And then also, who and how are you bringing people into the space who have disabilities to be the voice to say, yes, this works, no, this doesn't work, maybe try X, Y, and Z. How do you go about those kind of 2 different branches there?
Yeah. So I think in terms of the first question of how do we work on our the different things that we do, I would say there isn't an exact formula for what happens next. There's a lot of things that go into the decision-making process. One of them, I think, that's always really important to us is how do we expand our user base? So, we know that since everyone's experience is different and some people may have multiple disabilities and things like that, there's always sort of a desire on our part to make sure that the audience of people that we hit grows. And that may be that we've covered off features that may support certain groups, and then we look at another group and go, we haven't hit that one yet. Let's do this. So an example of this would be, last year we came out with a feature called voice control. And voice control is a way to be able to use your device using just your voice. So it gives you the opportunity to get into any of the nooks and crannies of the operating system, be able to navigate from item to item and use apps just through your voice. And also in the middle of that, be able to dictate things. So imagine that you're saying, tap messages and then saying, choosing Nicole, being able to dictate a message, let's go grab coffee after this, and then tap send and having it go through. And doing all of that without ever having to touch the device. Now, prior to this, we had built in a feature called switch control, which was also built largely to support individuals with extreme physical motor limitations who might also never touch the device. But switch access involves being able to utilize a sort of a third-party switch to just be able to move and navigate through things. And sometimes switch access, there's more steps that may need to be taken than just saying, tap this, So for us, that was a community that we wanted to make sure we could reach as well. For those for whom voice might be the only way that they could interact with their device, last year was our year to say, all right, we're going to bring this community into the Apple ecosystem. So in some cases, it's that element of let's figure out how to expand to a new area and a new group. In other cases, it may just be we realize there's something that, whether it be a big thing or a little thing, would just make a profound difference in somebody's life. And so we're always just trying to look at what are the things we can do. And it's really never just a one thing. When we do this, I know I talked about headphone accommodations, but there are so many things we've come out with this year. The other question about how do we engage with individuals, we have long lived with the mantra of nothing about us without us, which is certainly so huge in the disability community. And for that reason, it starts with people on our own team who are members of different communities and help us when we work on any of our features. So that's sort of the baseline. But then from there, really gaining feedback from the communities through a lot of different formats. And that's everything from working with people along the way as the design process is going on to when our new operating systems go into beta. There are a lot of developers as well as individuals who use those public betas, who download them early and give us feedback along the way. And then really just over the course of the year at any point, we've got a lot of ways that the community can get to us. One of the main ones is an email address, which is accessibility@apple.com. It's an email address that we've had open to the public for, I think it's over 15 years now, something around there. And there's a whole team that gets that email. And we have a lot of people on a daily basis who will write to us to ask questions, provide feedback, report bugs. We take all of that very seriously. Anything that gets filed as a bug or any of the feedback goes to our engineering team so they can work with it and try and make it better. And we're always there to answer questions. And so we really want the community to have a dialogue with us and to communicate what they like, what they don't like, where we can improve, and really help us make sure that our products are the best that are out there.
That's fantastic. I am excited to learn more just in my own personal journey with my Apple products on the voiceover controls, because I know, and perhaps Nikki, you too, that sort of being somebody that has a limb difference, like being able to operate things or like take selfies or stuff, like I'm pretty right hand dependent on my ability to interact with the device, whereas I'm not as easily able to interact with the device on my left hand solely, which then if I'm trying to do any other type of activity can get a little tricky in that. And I know that I do audio dictation just through my messages, but I haven't gone through the route of the voice control. So sometimes that I'm setting my messages and of course, making sure that I know all the right commands. If I'm doing an audio dictation, it'll go. And then at the end, it'll just say send. Because I haven't learned what the actual controls to be able to hit send. So sometimes I actually have to hit the enter button, but I know that's always like a telltale sign of when Sarah's doing audio dictations is send.
Yeah. Well, we do have a lot of features as well that are built to support physical motor, where it might be that you really just want to use one hand or even one digit to be able to run your device. But a great new feature that we actually just added this year to iPhone, and this works from the iPhone 10 and above. And this is based on the hardware being a part of this feature or the way that it works, but it's called back tap. And the idea behind it is that by doing either a double or a triple tap on the back side of the phone, you can have an action occur. So in my case, I have it set up so that my double tap is taking a screenshot and my triple tap is locking the screen. But you can set it up to do, in a lot of ways, just about anything from being able to, access a specific accessibility feature. So you might set it up to turn on voiceover or voice control or magnifier or whatever it might be. But you could also set it up to just have, reachability set up if you don't feel like getting to the top of the screen is easy for you, or getting to control center, notification center, to use it to scroll. You could set it up with a Siri shortcut. So if you have created a complex workflow as a Siri shortcut that you want to be able to just do as a single gesture, you could set that up as your double tap or your triple tap. And we are hearing so many people out in the world who have found back tap and are loving it already. So
yeah, I'm sorry to cut you off at the end there. My apologies. I'm glad that you kind of went into that, because that was going to be the next one I ask you about, because that is going to be an accessibility feature that I am excited to try out and I am excited to use, because exactly what you are saying. This is an accessibility need that I will be able to utilize. And yes, I can, I have learned ways to adapt around it, but even taking screenshots for me, because I only have my left arm just a little bit past my elbow. Lots of times I have to kind of position my phone against my body in order to be able to rearrange my hand to even hit the screenshot, which really in the grand scheme of things isn't a huge deal. Yet at the same time, to have the freedom to be able to, set the double tap on there, it's going to, it's those small things that make the fabric of my life so much easier. And so I just am so glad that, these things are being thought about with care. And that, again, as you were talking about, I think it's so important understanding that individuals, kind of maybe need or want the control to set up things the way that they need them set up. So even though Sarah and I technically both have hand differences, still she may use that double tap feature and connect it into something separate than I would connect it into. And so I just, again, thank you, because I think that is so important that you understand that from person to person, even if it technically is the blanket same disability, that doesn't necessarily mean we'll use that accessibility feature in exactly the same way. That was not a question, but just a comment. And thank you.
I'm excited for the back tap as well, because sometimes I also coming to the screenshots, and sometimes there's, like I'm thinking of, like a story or something that I want to take a screenshot of, but it has a time limit. And in order to stop the time limit, you have to kind of hold on to the screen and then take a screenshot. If I try holding onto that and pushing, I'll flip my phone out of my hand and it'll fall on the ground, which is why I have intense, phone protection cases, because I'm always dropping my phone. But if I want, so that's not as effective for me. So my way around it is I'll use my nose to hold the screen, and then I'll use my right hand to to screenshot. So it's just funny. I've been around that with my parents and my friends, and they're like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "This is how I need to screenshot to be able to keep the image there." And then it's funny. Sometimes I'll miss it because I can't see it because I'm using my nose. And then I'm like, okay, I have to go back and try it again. So I'm just really excited for things like the double tap on the back, so I can stop using my nose. That'd be great.
Oh yeah, the screenshot one I love, and it's something that we actually had this type of thing built into another accessibility feature that's been around for years on the iPhone, which is assistive touch. And assistive touch was created as a way to give you the opportunity to take any of the complex gestures and make them available through just a single touch of a digit. So it's, that would be things like taking a screenshot. So you don't have to use the physical buttons, or you don't need to have 4 fingers on a swipe down or even 2 fingers to pinch. You can just do it with one. So screenshot's been built in there for a while, and we have seen how much this has benefited so many people who don't want to use the physical buttons. But this just becomes, I think, even that on a little bit on steroids. Like it's so much easier now just to do a single double tap or triple tap. So yeah, we're always trying to think about the details. It's not just the sort of broad strokes of doing something, but it's really thinking about the specific things that would be a convenience for someone and would be life-changing, whether it's a huge thing or just the simplest of things like a double tap on the back of your phone.
Totally. I want to be respectful of time. I know we're coming in on it. But again, it's the small moments that make a difference, right? And it's, in theory, small changes to be thought about that can bring that ease for people of our community. And again, it's so good to know that it's a part of top to bottom thinking within the Apple world. So I am wondering, kind of as we close out our time together, what else would you like to share with us? Are there any other features you'd like to share? Anything else you want us to know? What's still burning inside you to share with us?
Another feature that we're really excited to put out to the world is one called sound recognition, which, a lot of the alarms and alerts and notifications in our world today are sound-based, and they're not always accessible to members of the deaf or the deafblind community. So we added in a feature called sound recognition which is a new setting that will alert users on an iPhone or iPad when a particular type of sound or alert has been detected. So imagine if a fire alarm is going off in a room, or if the doorbell rings, or if a person is shouting in the area, being able to put up a visual notification on the screen that alerts someone to what that thing might be. So really just making some of those audible noises far more accessible to the deaf and the deafblind community. Another thing, in group FaceTime, we've long had a way in which if you are the person speaking, it will give you prominence on the screen and make your tile, your bubble, the largest one on the screen, so people know who's kind of the principal speaker. We've now built in a new feature that detects when a participant is using sign language and makes them the prominent speakers. Another one to be aware of that we're really excited about, and this sort of speaks to the collaboration that we do in the world, is we're now supporting the Xbox Adaptive Controller for gaming. So for Apple Arcade, we know there's so many people who love immersing themselves in the incredible world of Apple Arcade to play some of these just fantastic games. And within the gaming community, for those who need, an adaptive controller, the work that Microsoft's done on the Xbox controller has been huge. And so it was definitely something we wanted to bring to the platform as quickly as possible. And just a lot of different things that we want people to be able to take advantage of. So, if you are someone who is interested in downloading a beta, please, go to the developer side or the public beta when it becomes available and check it out and give us your feedback. Let us know how we're doing. And yeah, I think that's about it.
I love it. Thank you so much for spending a little bit of time with us today, and just for sharing your knowledge with us. Again, just like from the community as a whole, thank you for the work that you are doing, because it's nice to be thought of, and it's nice that people are working to include us and actually be fully inclusive, which is what I feel Apple is doing. So just kind of a big thank you from the community at large from us here today as well.
Well, absolutely. Thank you for that. We love the work that we do. I feel like I have the best team in the entire world, and they are so passionate and so ridiculously smart and creative in coming up with all of these things. And so I'm thrilled that we are able to get this out every year and tell the world on all the stuff that we've been noodling on over the course of a year.
All right.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thanks.
Thank you for spending part of your day with us. We want to give thanks to our network, Public House Media, for our intro beats to Jason Bards with Cybernetics. Our local art, we want to remember Patrice. You can find his work at normalpersons.com.
Be sure to follow Disarming Disability on Facebook and Instagram. And lastly, be sure to check out our website, disarmingdisability.com, where you can find all 13 episodes of Season 1, links to resources, transcriptions, and discussion questions for each episode. And check out our blog where we feature amazing disability advocates. See you next week.